Australia, the land down under, for Revolution Radio on Revolution.radio. Yes, we are all crisis actors. Australia doesn't exist. The Earth is flat and surrounded by a massive ice wall, and gravity is just falling up. That's all gravity is. Home to ideas that are fresh. None of these ideas, though. Relatively uncensored. No, well, yeah, I guess so. And most importantly, this is listener-funded radio. Listener-funded radio, which means you, the listener, have it within your power to support the station. Just donate. Any kind of currency, including crypto, is good. But hey, you know what? Maybe you cannot donate. And that's okay, because, hey, things are not getting better. They're not getting better and getting tougher, and they're tough all over for a lot of people all the time. So tell people about the station. That's good too. That is good too, because, you know, one of those good folk might be able to donate. So donations are important. Today is the 1st of August, 2024. Where has the year gone? Seriously, though. The 1st of August. What? Happy Lamas. Happy Lamas. You can catch the cave on the air, on the line, and on your smart device. That's right. So grab an app to listen anywhere. I'd love to know if anybody in the space station ever listened to us. Probably not. Or listen at home on a Grace Table Up digital radio. That's okay too. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. But you know what? The archives are free. That's right. Nothing up front, nothing after. Gratis, umsonst. It is fantastic. Just get in there, enjoy. That's not a good reason to donate, of course. Before we start broadcasting at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast. And for Dave,
it's the Darken Jungle.
Thank you, sir. And for myself, of course, the Dark people. And we'd like to pay respects to elders past, present, and future. Wow, Dave! I tell you what. I've had a thought.
What's that?
I'll tell you what the thought was. I believe that each species can sense its own extinction. That's what I believe. I believe if there are circumstances approaching, you know, people, animals will take action. Mostly animals. You can see animals, you know, taking flight if there's an earthquake or there's a fire coming, but especially earthquakes. But there's something in us that's like a clock. It tells us what's what. And over recent times, this clock has gone haywire in us, and it's triggered certain people. And it has expressed itself in unspeakable violence, in general despair, and suicides. We have spoken about the fact that our fertility rate is crashing through the floor. And I think, see, there's something specifically heinous about attacking little children in my mind. And I don't think I'm alone. And we can't leave this subject alone, but it seems to be happening more and more frequently. It's not that it's reported on more, I just think it's happening more. And not everywhere, but in a lot more places than it did before. It used to be kind of, in the States, it happens in the States, you know, America's crazy anyway, sure, but now, not so much. It's happening all over the world, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe. It's all over the place. And the latest one, of course, I'm talking about the one in England. Right? And it takes something very raw and very unwholesome to attack children. Dave and I had a show cycle on the Shiny Side Out where we discussed the flood legends, the flood myths, right? And it was, it still is the longest show cycle we've ever had. It'll tell you how many myths there are. But one of the thematic concepts, not for all the myths, but for quite a few, was cannibalism, and specifically eating the children. And there was a belief that the punishment for those transgressions was, in fact, the flood, the deluge, the great catastrophe. In mythology, the act of eating children also is a fairly common theme, right? Uranus eating his children, for example, right? Or Zeus was served the children of his host at a banquet and promptly punished his host most heinously. Also in fairy tales, you might not be familiar with this.
Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel, that's the famous one. There's one called, in English it's called Tom Thumb, but a lot was lost in translation.
Oh.
Because Tom Thumb actually went out with his 7 brothers, right? And they went into the world, and they came across this cave, and they were hungry, and the woman took them in, and said, come on in, I'll feed you, it's okay, but you have to be quiet, because my husband is a man-eater, a Menschenfresser, a cannibal, right? And they said, oh yeah, we'll be very quiet. Yeah, he said, look, you'll just sleep in that bedroom over there, and my 7 daughters still sleep over here. But just don't make a noise, otherwise my husband is going to eat you. So in the night, the cannibal, the Menschenfresser, the monster, if you will, came home, smelled at the boys, and said, oh, go and eat those boys, I'm going to kill them. Oh, and then Tom Thumb heard this, and he told his brothers to switch rooms with the girls. So they took the sleeping girls into one room, and they went to sleep in their room. And then the cannibal went into the room he thought was inhabited by the boys, killed them all by cutting their throat, and then went out to his wife in the morning, said, go prepare the boys, I killed them last night, I want to eat them for breakfast. And of course, the wife goes and then finds her daughters killed. And in the meantime, Tom Thumb and his 7 brothers run away. But this act, this terrible act of eating children and your own children, etc., it seems to echo through mythology, fairy tales, legends, and it's always probably one of the worst things you could do. One of the worst crimes that you could commit. And cannibalism kind of always has been in most societies, right? It's not normal. It's not a normal act to commit. It used to be quite normal in the olden days, olden days. So I wonder, Dave, are we sensing our imminent demise? Is this a pent-up violence and aggression directing itself against the young because of, I don't know, this despair that some people feel? Because obviously people have different tolerance levels, right? And different thresholds. Is that what we're seeing?
That's a really good question. Because I have to do something else to it. Because I think you've raised a good topic. And if I said that the children today are more violent on the children today, that makes sense. I asked a question, but my answer to my own question would, yeah, it seems likely. And when I look at when we had to fend for ourselves, the Gen Xers, there was less. Now, what's the difference? There's a vast difference between the generations and what we've been exposed to and what we know. And is it and the difference also being some crazy immigration. Now, I'm my view on immigration is, well, I think mostly everybody on the planet is an immigrant of some kind.
Yes, that's true.
So even born in the country, how far back can you claim your family goes? How much have you felt as though you've assimilated into the country in which you now live, right? That's a really good question to ask. How much? Because if you're truly a part of it, you would think everything else is abhorrent. Anything outside of that narrow thing, and I don't want to sound Hungarian here, But is it because we have stayed in small groups? Is it because this assimilation and immigration? Because I don't think it's the same people doing it to the same people. That's that's it. Remember, that was, I think. So the latest thing that caused, I think, the riots in Leeds at the dance studio, awful, truly awful. It's happening more and more, though, and it's happening more and more in everywhere. And it disappoints me greatly that we can't just all get along. What is it about the way that we should be assimilating ourselves into another culture? If you're not going to do it, don't go. You see, there are Northern European countries that took a lot of immigrants recently, and they're now talking about their culture being so diluted they can't recognize it anymore.
That is actually true. In fact,
that's true. I heard it from the actual people.
Oh no, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Germany, and this was prior to the Syrian influx of the million people.
Wow.
And this was back in 2000, and when did my uncle pass away? I want to say 2020. No, that's not right. Probably 2015. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was, but the last 10 years, I went back.
Sure.
And the Germany of my childhood doesn't exist anymore. So truth is, what you're saying is absolute. That's it. That is a fact. The massive influx of immigrations or immigrants or whatever will change your land. It will change your country, and it will get worse for a very simple reason, especially in Western countries, because the birth rate is going down for people that are in the natural inhabitants, and then the birth rate of the people that have come in is going up dramatically. So they will eventually breed the original inhabitants out.
Yeah.
So you're right, 100%.
So if whoever you are, I'm not going to say anyone in particular, whoever you are, if you aren't willing to participate in the local customs, assimilating into the local culture, then do think again. If you're bringing your country with its trouble that you left to another country, I think that's bad. I think you should just reevaluate your position on it. Because what was it that you thought was so good about the country you wanted to join, and then for some reason, as your numbers grew and you stayed in small pockets collectively from the same country, bringing the old world with you, you're just perpetuating the same conflicts and the same attitude that you left? I'm not sure. I remember seeing such a change, Mickey, with the and this isn't rose-colored glasses, post-World War II migrations, and a lot of people, man, they really struggled. The old folk who barely spoke English from Italy and Greece coming to Australia, the kids really giving it a good red-hot go, but I have to say the native Australians, I mean the people who were already here, pointed change out, maybe too much, and I'm sure it wasn't an easy thing for those kids to have gone through, being parents of migrants. They're the firstborn. I'm sure that was not easy. I don't think a lot of us made it very easy, but it should have been. I think that we should have concentrated more on making that seamless. The congregation of people into areas in Sydney wasn't as great as it was in Melbourne, for instance. Melbourne set aside or established areas for the migrants to live, and that's now perpetuated some beautiful areas where Italian restaurants are prevalent, and the Greek culture is there and strong. But there's something different, Mackie. I just, without saying it, I'm just saying it's a different time now. I think people have all these different factors. The education kids have, you know what I mean. I think there is definitely, it's a different situation. I can't say I know what the answers are, and I'm just witnessing and explaining, I think, only the differences.
No, look, it is a different situation. It's different in, look, it all comes down to essentially familiarity and ability to integrate, as you pointed out earlier, right? Sometimes cultures are so juxtaposed they can't be integrated. That's okay. You know, not everybody has to integrate, but it's very difficult to be in a country where people don't integrate or don't want to integrate, and bring with them the chip on the shoulder. I was confronted with it when I was at uni during the 90s, while the Balkan Wars were happening in Europe, and all of a sudden I saw this graffiti at Sydney University. Oh, I think I've lost you guys.
I'm here.
Hello? Am I back?
Yes, you're still here.
I'm still here. Okay, it told me I was just dropped out there for a second. No, so I went to university in the 90s, and the Balkan Wars was raging in Europe, and people brought that conflict to Sydney, and Sydney University, and there was graffiti everywhere, slogans, you know, Croatian, Serbian slogans, Bosnian slogans, and I'm thinking, really? I mean, we're as far as you can go without going back from the place that's full of troubles, and you want to bring it here for no good reason. I mean, don't come here to David's point. And I know it sounds terrible, but I mean it. If you are making a conscious choice to go somewhere and be somewhere else and have a new life, leaving your troubles behind, then do that. But the problem is this, Dave. This is the problem. Not everybody comes with that in mind. Yeah, I want to say the vast majority of people want to do exactly that. They just want to have a better future. That's all I want. But not everybody comes with that in mind. There are people that come here deliberately to stir up trouble, and other places too. Right? And this is a problem now that is global. We've got a rise of the far right, massive rise of the far right, which is fueled by migration, which will be more fueled by climate refugees.
Yeah,
because it'll happen, and there's nothing you can do. You can build as many walls as you want. Okay. Once millions of people are on the move, and they will be, because the thing is this, right? Let's just look at this for a second. Let's just peel back what it means. Let's say temperatures go to 3 degrees, which would be catastrophic, but let's say they do. And chances are we're actually on the way there now, right?
Yeah.
Forget 10 degrees, because all bets are off at that point. Forget it. Now, climate change does not only mean global warming. It's a factor. But global warming does not necessitate it to be hot everywhere. The Earth has a complex climate. And what we're seeing here, and what is being shown to us as probably the most important effect of this climate change, that's what we call it, is the extremity, or the extreme temperatures, the extreme events, which were, once in a while in the past and are happening now on a very frequent basis. They're no longer extreme events. It makes no sense to say 1 in a 100-year flood, 1 in a 100-year storm, 1 in a 100-year fire, because they happen every year. Okay? So this is what's happening. The extremes are becoming the new norm. And the new extremes will be catastrophic. I don't know if you remember this. I mean, the thing is this. People always say, climate change is a hoax, doesn't happen. Global warming is a hoax. Global warming doesn't mean, like I said, that it's going to get hot everywhere else. Global warming means there will be more meltwater, more precipitation, more moisture in the air, and some areas will actually get colder. That's what happens. But if you look at things we had to do over the last few years, we had to invent a new category of storm.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't have
Superstorms.
superstorm. We didn't it did, the storm categories, the definitions we had weren't enough.
It exceeded
That's
the ratings. Yep.
correct. Air pollution, which is one of the side effects, I guess, has reached dramatic levels in places like India, for example, but not just India, elsewhere as well. Where in China, for example, as well, where the pollution is so horrific, it doesn't go away anymore, and people are now dying
Mm-hmm.
and staying indoors and have to wear respirators and all kinds of things. They're not sick; it's just the air is no longer breathable. What?
Yeah,
And
sounds right.
then you have got these massive. I remember landslides when I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
and when I grew up, there were always there was always landslides,
Not weekly.
but not all the time, and not always with hundreds of people dying.
That's right.
Fires. I remember fires when I was a child, but I tell you what, I don't remember any fires like these, and not just the intensity of the individual fires, but the volume of fires. I mean, the entire the entire western seaboard in the United States,
Yep.
especially the Pacific Northwest, is on
Mhm.
fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's all on fire.
Yeah. 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 But stop looking at it, Becky, because that's obviously you're aware of it because you're looking at it. If you look somewhere else, then that can kind of dissipate. But see, I love the news. So I've been watching. I watched the hurricane or typhoon breeze past Taiwan and go into China, and it was a Cat 5 when it hit Taiwan. Just grazing, but it wasn't a direct centre to the city, but still large enough and wide enough to cause devastation. Then I watched the precipitation because it always ends up in China if it's going to go through there, and there's some record rainfalls, the silting up of the Yangtze, and the Three Gorges Dam it doesn't have the volume that it used to be able to protect the city from downstream. So there's so much going on, so much that I barely know where to look. I used to have some cereal, Mackie, and watch my feeds in the morning, and now I'd be onto a second box of cereal. There's so much to watch, and this is the hard part, is that people aren't getting the message. I'm not telling you, as an audience member, I'm not telling you to do anything. It's your bag. You're responsible for yourself, right? It's like in the planes, you should take the oxygen first, then help the children, because they can deal with it longer
Yes.
than you can. So I'm prepared. I don't know about you, whoever is out there listening. Becky, and I keep saying that how much is man-made and how much isn't. Because I take the point that I recognise that it is. The temperatures are rising. I get it. The weather is changing. It's becoming more violent. We had 125 kilometre-hour winds in the Alps, in Australia's Alps, this last week, in the last few days. That is not storm related. That's not storm related. That's just the wind now. The wind itself, the low pressure systems, not storms. You could call it a front, but it's still a rotational storm, but it's not a, this is Southern Ocean wind. It is increasing in speed. So the severity of those, let's call it the Earth's air conditioning system. That's what it does. It tries to move heat from the poles to the poles, from the equator to the poles, to reduce the heat in the middle, and kind of balance it all out. That's how it all moves around and works, and it does a reasonably good job. But with the more heat, there becomes more retaliatory cold, and where Meki's right, the cold is colder and the heat is getting hotter, and the storms are getting more violent because they love a temperature gradient greater than 10 degrees Celsius. That's what they thrive on. So let's put that aside and say, well, since the Earth froze last time, we are still thawing. We've had a reasonably stable climate for long enough for us to get to the moon, which is fantastic. Did we go? Don't care at this point, not for my argument. Let's pretend we went. So, for us to get there and have all of the things we had, all the stable climate, the food, the population, the technology, the stability, at least relative stability in our geopolitical system, for us to be able to cooperate enough or have the finite resources to get there. Fantastic. Hurrah. Look, we did something. My problem at this point is some of the measurements weren't right for temperature, even though it is getting hotter. But in our little cities where the temperatures are being monitored, they have their own climate. They have a microclimate within the climate, and all the concrete and all the bitumen, the buildings, the bricks, the clay roofs, they all retain heat. Trees don't. Trees don't do the same thing as our man-made structures do. All our roads and all the clear areas that we've built receive more kilojoules of energy, hold it longer, and let it go over a longer period of time than a tree does, for instance. Just saying. And so where we're measuring temperatures, there is a discrepancy there because we're measuring it in the microclimate and not out in the woods. You know what I mean? No one lives there. Why would we measure that temperature, you might ask? Well, that gets a baseline. And yes, it is going up. It's still going up in the woods. It's not going up there as fast as it is in the cities, but since our cities occupy a very small region of the planet's surface, in square meterage, that's important to understand that as part of the measuring. But we're still undergoing the thaw. The sea level will still rise to where it is going to return to, and we're just in the way. Like I pointed out, Meki, a long time ago, and I'll hand it back to you in a second, we pointed out that Australia's carbon emissions are more than half of our emissions are due to bushfires. But we've got to recognise something really important, that's recyclable carbon. That's not net new carbon. Net new carbon is where we've unlocked carbon that's been stored for 1 million years. That's net new carbon. And we're bringing that back into the atmosphere again. That isn't, it can't be good for the atmosphere. Not saying that it is or isn't. It can't be good. However, the differential between net new and recyclable is not something that anyone's willing to entertain because of what is the argument for being 100% electric and renewable energy only. It waters that argument down so severely that I wouldn't be listening to it at the moment. As long as we can create ourselves something that is at least using recyclable carbon, then we're not going to be adding net new carbon to the problem. That's all we have to do. We don't have to go electric everything because it's implausible. We don't have enough electricity for it. That's the funniest part. So, yeah, look, it does my head in. It really does. I have more time than I require to think about this stuff. And this is where I am with it. I'm at the realization that the story that we're being told isn't entirely accurate.
Ha!
That took about the first minute, and then the rest of it is watching. It's like the Keystone Cops. You're watching people run around, or actually like the Secret Service, watching people run around in circles trying to do something that they should have been well practiced at and still failed regardless. Right? They're clutching at straws. They're not getting anywhere. There's all the intelligence is gone. This is now back to the government. All the intelligence is outsourced. They're only listening to lobbyists who smell money in the drawer. They smell it. They can smell it, Mickey. They're hungry for money. How can I spend the government's money? Oh, look, if we do this, how much is that going to cost? Everything you've got.
I will take it further than that.
Go on.
I think. None of these things are actually necessary. So, going electric, or being worried about carbon or anything like that. While I agree with you in the present state of our understanding of what we're allowed to know, then it's the right way to go. Right? You want to recycle as much as you can. But the truth is, we no longer need to do any of this. And we haven't had to do any of this for a long, long time. The only reason we're still doing it is because we're being lied to every day of our lives. We're being lied to and lied to and lied to. And this is really what Plato's cave is about. It's not really discussing what we could do within the framework of what they let us know.
I know what he's going to say.
And tell everybody. Well, it's true, right? I mean, ultimately, we are now. We should be living in a post-scarcity society. We should, because the technology exists. Now, the reason we don't, and I want to go further than that, we could be living in a utopia. No, it's never going to be perfect, right? People will always find a reason to hate each other, and there'll always be greed and jealousy and all kinds of things. Sure enough. But none of the economic problems, none of the medical problems, very few of the societal problems that we face today need exist, because the dream of free energy is not a dream, it's a reality. The dream of a post-gaseous society is not a dream, it's reality. But we don't get to enjoy it because through some, mechanism of fate, maybe our own negligence, maybe by higher design, the power to change the world lies in the hand of a few parasites that have absolutely no interest in changing anything at all. There are so many examples of this. I mean, you have to be blind and stupid in both legs not to see what is going on, okay? And why do you think these inventors have gone missing or have died? Why do you think we are not publishing technology that we know exists? We know it exists, but we're not publishing it. We're not using it out there in the world, right? Because it's not profitable. Why are we okay with destroying millions of tons of food every year when we have people starving? Why are we okay with getting diseases when we know that the cures are out there? The cures for everything are out there. And you say, oh, that's not true, Mackie, because the royals, they die, and the billionaires, they die. I mean, if it was really out there, then, what was his name? The Apple guy, Jeff?
No, not Jeff Bezos. You're thinking of the other guy.
The Apple guy, whatever his name is. Apple
that's
guy.
Correct.
Apple guy with the turtleneck. Anyway, so he's a billionaire, and he died of cancer, so clearly, Mackie, you're wrong. Well, I'm not. Because those aren't the power players. Those are just schmucks like you and me.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, no, that's not true. Well, like you mean, they're parasitic in their own right. But the true parasites, see, this is the thing. We always talk about they and them. And the reason we do this is because we don't really know who they are. We don't know who they are. And they're not the Bilderbergers, and they're not the Skull and Bone Society, and they're not the the International Monetary Fund. They're none of these. They are tools they use, and tools they've put in place, yes, and they choose the right people and put them through scholarships and give them riches, because they know they will, pull in the right direction for what they want to achieve. But the actual they, the actual them, we do not know. I mean, think about it this way for a second. So these parasites that I'm talking about, I believe, are practical immortals for all intents and purposes. If you hit them in the head, they'll die, but for all intents and purposes, they do not age, they do not get sick. If they look after themselves, if they don't consume too many toxic products, if they don't fall down a flight of stairs, there's no reason why they shouldn't live a very, 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 very long time indeed. Now, they could be a neighbor. And this is the kicker, because think about this for a second, Dave. Let's say you live, I know this is going to sound crazy to you guys, but let's say you live 500,000 years, half a million years. Let's say that's how long you live. You got to keep it interesting, right? You got to keep it interesting. And would you be stuck on this planet? No, you wouldn't. Because we know dimensional travel is possible. We know time travel is possible from a purely physics point of view. We know that space travel is possible. Now, maybe you can't go faster than the speed of light, but something is going faster than the speed of light. Hello, entanglement, right? What? Yeah. So let's be very clear. So I think, Dave, living in this multiverse as we do, I think the biggest problem for these parasites, and they're still parasites because they don't give anything back to us. Dave, they don't give anything back to us. They live here amongst us.
Yeah.
Maybe use it as a base, but they don't give anything back. So as far as I'm concerned, they're parasites. And boredom would be a big thing. I think boredom would be a huge issue for these parasites. Because if you live such a long time, maybe you live a long time, maybe your metabolism is very different, maybe you also sleep for a long time. A lot of religions talk about gods sleeping for very long times.
Yeah.
Maybe that's true. Maybe they sleep away generations because their metabolism is completely different to ours, right? Makes sense. Makes sense if it were. And you can't really look at them and say they're human like us, even if they started out that way, simply because of perspective. If you lived 100,000 years, okay, nobody that you grew up with would be alive today. Not even the dust of their bones would be around today. And you look at life in a very different way. So you have a relationship with someone for 20, 30, 40, even 100 years. In 100,000 years, that means nothing. It means nothing. So they have as much in common with us as we have with my favorite little insect, the mayfly. The mayfly and us will never sit down and discuss philosophy. Okay? And similarly, we don't have the insider perspective that I'm called them practical immortals have. We don't have that perspective. We don't have. They don't look at us like people. We're not even. When you walk in the street, do you make sure that you don't step on any ants?
I do the best I can.
Well, but ultimately, you don't go out of your way to step on them, right? But I mean, you're walking, and if an ant happens to be underfoot, well, that's just bad luck. And similarly, most of us would never recognize the existence of ants as we walk around. I mean, unless there's a lot of them and we see them specifically, or we look for them, we'll just walk and we might step on them or not. And ants, similarly, would never really be aware of us. They would not understand. They wouldn't understand our nature. They couldn't glean our nature. In a similar way, we can't glean the nature of these immortals. Their perspective and our perspective are completely different. Not only that, think about this for a second. Our technology, such as it is, notwithstanding interference and potential augmentations and appropriations from others, we have developed over the last 5,000 years. 5,000 years of written history. All our achievements are in there. And most of the achievements you can probably plonk in the last 200 years from the steam engine onwards. Okay? We have achieved a lot in a very short time. And like I said, there's some theories that would say that we had help or we took it from someone or whatever. It doesn't matter. Imagine if you had 100,000 years or 500,000 years or a million years. Again, like Arthur C. Clarke said, any sufficiently advanced technology will appear as magic. And I think that's exactly where they are at right now. I mean, the technology that is at their fingertips, even, notwithstanding all the things that we invented and then have been suppressed, they have already had this. So all the things that we have come up with, free energy and maybe even interdimensional portals and Tesla's, research into wireless energy transmissions, etc., they already had that. It's not like they took it from Tesla and those guys. They already had it. They just made sure that we can't have it. I think that's what's happening here. They've got the technology that they have at their disposal. I know what it sounds like, like crazy Mackie, the ominous them. The technology they have at their disposal is light years ahead of anything we can even dream up. I mean, Dave has a story. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but Dave told me the story of where he was in his room, and I think you were with your daughter, and it appeared as though there was a tear in the fabric of reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was an eye looking at you, or some such.
That's right. I was watching TV, and she said to me, "When do we get an owl?" And I as I turned to her, because she was sitting kind of to my right and behind me. And when I turned, I noticed that there was an eye, like you say, was someone was holding the stage curtains, just apart enough to have a look through, but I couldn't see the curtains. It was just seen to be a cut in reality, and the eye had fur around it, so if a lion was standing up, it's the only way I can describe it. And I actually did a rendering of it. The black and grey kind of fur cases that you would find audio gear in.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like that colour. But the eye was a yellowy colour, like a lion's eye, if that makes any sense. So, yes. And when I turned to her, seeing it, and when I turned back, it had disappeared. But I saw it. It was there.
That level of tech, we can't even begin to understand. And I know I talk about this a lot, but it fits beautifully here as well. All the anomalies, and I really urge you to watch it, because we have never been able to see this. It has never been shown to us, and we have never had as many scientific instruments pointed at these phenomena like we in these shows. There's the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch and Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, those two shows, and they're putting a lot of money into that research. And I think Brandon Fugel is a believer. He's as much of a tinfoil hat wearer as we are. Okay.
Oh, cool.
I have no doubt. In fact, all the people there that are engaged in this, I mean, one of them, Winterton, he's Thomas Winterton, he's the caretaker. He actually was born near there. And Dragon, the security chief, is a very close childhood friend of Brandon Fugel's. They were on a missionary together as Mormons when they were younger. So I had a bit of background on these guys because I want to know who I'm dealing with when I watch these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to watch it, because you look at it, and the tech clearly that we're dealing with here is so far beyond anything that we understand. It's not even funny. If one of the assumptions is true, and there is a wormhole there, right? In our understanding of physics, it should tear the planet apart. It just should. I mean, the forces we're talking about here should tear the planet apart. Just the gravitational force is required. to open a wormhole.
Because
Right?
our calculations are something like you would need the mass of a white dwarf or something as energy.
Yeah, completely. So again, and other things as well. So again, whatever we find there, whatever we uncover, I'm not entirely sure that we actually could understand it. It is kind of, I think I might have said something similar before. Let's go back, some time and look at Neanderthal, who had a bigger brain than we do, by the way, Neanderthal. But let's say, people that had no technology, living in caves and really primitive. Let's talk about those people. It doesn't have to be Neanderthal. And then you transport them into our time, maybe, well, I guess 6, 7, 8, 10,000 years, whatever. Because before the flood, they were much more advanced, so it has to be after the flood. And you deposit them here today in some field. They start a camp, and there's a fence there, and the fence is sort of, stopping them from going into Cape Canaveral, where we, still launch rockets into space from. And they look at it, and they shake the fence, and they look at the nature of the fence, and they chew on the fence and they lick the fence, and by doing that, they're trying to figure out how the rockets fly in the air, right? Because in their mind, those phenomena might be related, because there's a fence there, we can't do anything with it, and behind the fence are these rockets that seem to be going to the sky.
That's right.
And if I just examine the fence and I lick it, and I bite it and I feel it, then I'm sure I can figure out what the mystery is. Of course, that's completely nonsense. You never find out what anything means. But I fear that's exactly what we're doing on Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, we're rattling on that fence, not even understanding the nature of the phenomenon that we're looking at. Not even the slightest concept of what it is we're poking.
It's a different kind of physics.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. But it's there. Now, an armchair skeptic would say, "Oh, it's all a hoax. It's all nonsense, it's BS, blah blah blah." Okay. So all of the things that they've captured on camera, all the experts they brought in, all the government officials, all the millions of dollars they're sinking into this by having all this equipment there, all of it is a hoax, and they're all in on it. By the way, they're all collaborating. By now there must be hundreds of people that are, in there. And could you do it? Yeah, you could do it. I guess you could do it if you really wanted to. Don't see the point though, because they're not making a lot of money from the TV show. It's on a History Channel. I don't think it makes them. I don't think the TV show makes them enormously wealthy. I really don't. The guy Brendan Fugel is a very successful businessman. He has nothing to gain from being associated with these kinds of, let's call them, crazy ideas, if you will.
Yeah.
So, but he's serious, and you look at him, and he does sink his money into this, and the TV show, I think, helps pay for it, or some of it, which is great, but it's not going to make him any richer than he already is. I really don't think so. So, again, but the thing is this, Dave, you can never convince armchair skeptics, because they're very comfortable with sitting where they sit, and pontificating and going on about how not non-Madol, but how the Indonesian pyramid is not actually a pyramid, right? It's not a pyramid. It's that terrace, but it's not a pyramid. And you know what I really found interesting? I saw this. Oh man, don't have enough time for this. Do you know that the World Economic Forum seems to be controlling what's happening both at the Indonesian side and at Göbekli Tepe?
Oh, I knew about Göbekli Tepe, yeah.
Yeah, the Göbekli Tepe...
they've stopped the dig.
They stopped the dig. They said, we'll start again, over the next 150 years, we'll dig it up.
That's right.
What?
They've got enough money to take every grain of dust out of there by employing separate people to pick up each piece of dust. That's how much money they've got to work with, and yet no.
Because the guy that is in charge of the company that is now owning the rights to it, I guess, is part of the World Economic Forum.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the site in Indonesia, and the name escapes me.
Oh, really? That's the latest Hancock one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
They, it seems as though for some reason, these people, the World Economic Forum and Charles Schwab and all those people, they put a kibosh on these
Yeah, they don't want
archaeological
us to
digs.
know any more about the past. We've found it, and they seem to have worked it out.
And Blacky Tepe is only 10% excavated. 10.
And it's not the
10%.
only tepe.
No. And the Indonesian minister, this is actually what happened. The Indonesian minister, when this first happened in Indonesia, he said, "Oh, here, unlimited funds, just go and do what you need to do, you know."
Mhm.
Then another guy came into power, and he is also linked to the same club of people. And the same thing happened. And now, in fact, violently so, where they are really aggressively denying even publication of anything like this. And the Guardian Weekly, and again, the editor in charge there, she also is connected to all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably the most virulent attack on Hancock that has ever happened. And I read the Guardian Weekly because I like it. I've read it for 20 years. I liked it when it was paper. I liked it better. I don't like the magazine format, but that's just me. But these visceral attacks that she has on Hancock are incredible. It's the most dangerous thing that's out there. This documentary, that he has out there on I think it's Netflix or History. Netflix, I think.
Yep.
Ancient Apocalypse, and I'm thinking, so what? How is this the most? What? This is the most dangerous. This is the most dangerous idea. Are you insane? And I'm blown away. I'm thinking, how is this even an argument? How would anybody agree with her? But people agree with her. Well, Graham, we should just believe the scientists, and Graham Hancock is a crazy person, and we should not give him any oxygen. We shouldn't let him do anything, and we should boycott his documentary. And the excavations in Indonesia are complete nonsense, and etc., etc., etc. And
It sounds like Egypt, Mickey.
Exactly. Now, in fact, people have been banned from Egypt.
Yeah.
That have been talking about these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, though? These attacks smack of desperation.
Yeah.
Because this is now shining the light into an area that nobody, or none of that club at least, wants to look at, or wants us to look at. Right. So we have to do what we can to destroy the person, to destroy their research. And I find this astounding. Prove them wrong. Go ahead, prove them wrong. But I say, go and dig on the old coastlines, on the old river, on the old estuaries. Dig there, see what you find.
Did you see the Joe Rogan guy that said that he was part of exploring the old coastlines, and he said they found nothing.
They found nothing.
And he goes, well, where did you look? And he goes, on the map, I can show you. We looked there. What, did you look next to the old river? No, why would we do that?
Let's just pick a random... Because in Australia, coastline is plentiful, and not everywhere are cities. You will find them invariably, though, near rivers.
That's exactly right.
Invariably. Look at the map of the world and see where the coastal cities are. Not all of them, but a lot of them are sitting at estuaries and river outlets and bays, etc., etc. I mean, Sydney is a perfect example. Parramatta River flows right into Sydney Bay.
Even New York Harbour, Becky, New York. There's you can see it off the coast of New York where the plateau is, the escarpment, and where it goes and where the river cut into it.
Yeah.
It's there. It's
almost, but it's almost willful. I didn't watch this one. Thank you for telling me, Dave. But that sounds like willful ignorance. Where, oh no, we looked everywhere, but where there's a chance of finding something.
That's right. And they doubled down.
Yes,
absolutely. That's what we did. Yeah.
That's insane. Don't tell me. Hey, look, thank you so much for sharing this last hour with us. It's never long enough, but we can't afford to do 2 hours. It's just not going to happen. But one day when we make money, we might. This has been Plato's Cave. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Don't go anywhere. I'm sure the station is something awesome. But most of all, be